Hi everyone, I'm Susan Colby. I'm the Director of Faculty Development, and I'm going to go over our Agile Academy first assignment. And Module 1 is all about exploring Agile teaching. This is our summative assessment for Agile Academy, and what you're going to actually be doing over the course of the 2 weeks is completing a chart that looks exactly like this. You're going to be thinking about your own course organization, community building and communication, assessment of student learning, and instructional strategies. Now, if you'll notice in the left-hand column, this is what you currently do. For many of you, it's face-to-face, so you're just going to describe what you do to help students be successful in your course in each of these areas. You may have 1, 2, 3, up to 5 bullets in each of these areas, depending on what you currently do and what's important in your course. So over the course of the 2 weeks, we'll be completing this. So as you complete the left-hand column, which is describing what you currently do in each of those 4 components, then you're going to want to upload it into your Learning Team Discussion Forum. Before you do that, it's best if you could highlight some of those components that you want targeted feedback about from your learning team members. For example, if I'm in an internship or a course that has students out in the field for a good portion of the time, that might look very different in the fall. So that might be one of my greatest challenges, and I might put that in there and then highlight that particular item in the Agile Teaching Strategies chart so that my teammates can be sure to give me feedback about what they think about what I might do as I adapt my instruction to meet a different course option. Once you get that uploaded and provide a context about how you think about course design, what your goals are in your course, and what you could really use some feedback on, your teammates will then go into the discussion board, and everybody will respond to 2 teammates. We'll get some very focused feedback that'll help us move forward. Now, to get started, you're probably going to want to be thinking about the course delivery options themselves. And we've already talked a little bit about that in the Agile teaching video that Lindsay made last time, but keep in mind that there's 2 different types of online delivery, asynchronous and synchronous. You've probably already tried those out during spring of 2020. And then there's some different hybrid options. So we have rotating student groups, which is where you might have half your class on a Tuesday and then you'd flip and have the second half of the class on Thursday. This of course means that on the opposite day, when they're not with you face to face, there's going to have to be some engagement in some type of an activity. Simultaneous broadcast would be when you are actually broadcasting to some of your students in a remote area. Could be in their own home, could be in a different room, but you're trying to keep all the students together for the entire course, and they'll all be participating, some online and some face-to-face. HighFlex is a very complex way to actually manage a course. It's where you have different learning options and students select different activities that they want to do in relation to course goals. And then of course there's face-to-face. For most of us in Agile Academy, we're going to be adapting face-to-face to either online or hybrid environments and become more agile in our teaching. So again, for the first assignment, you're just completing the left-hand column all the way down on the Agile teaching chart about what you currently do in these different areas. What my goal is right now is to give you kind of a long-term look at what this full teaching strategy chart could look like after 2 weeks. I'm going to focus on instructional strategies area, and I'm going to talk to a course that I teach, which is a seminar course with a lot of discussion with master students. So my course is predominantly some very heavy and robust discussion around different topics. So I'm describing that in the left-hand column that you can see here, and then I'm thinking about how am I going to have to adapt so that I can meet online or hybrid instruction. First of all, I'm going to have to prepare differently. If I'm used to coming in and just handing out papers, obviously that isn't going to work. So I'm going to have everything uploaded on As You Learn. It's also very helpful and beneficial to have the kind of questions you want students to focus on prior to coming in that day. That leads to more targeted conversation. So again, preparing is going to have to look a little different, and you're going to have to be very coordinated. If students are going to be completing any type of paper together, that might have to be uploaded early in a Google Doc so that all the groups can be adding questions in or comments, and that's might be what the work is for the day based on the discussion. If I'm changing a face-to-face discussion to a synchronous online course option, then I'm going to be probably planning to use Zoom, both the large group, main area, and then the small breakout rooms. I'm probably also going to want to have a handle on the polling that I can have in there, so I might just check in with students as we go. But that might be how I do synchronous discussions. I would probably facilitate them the same way that I do in face-to-face, but we would all be online together. If I'm asynchronous, that's a whole different story, and that is definitely a different way to hold a discussion. I'm going to have to get pretty savvy at using the tools like Flipgrid and the discussion forum, and I'm going to have to go in quite often and provide feedback so students can hear and see me in the course. Again, I would have to be very specific on the prompts that I want them to answer, whether I want them to post something in the discussion forum and then write about it, or whether I just want them to talk about it in a Flipgrid kind of a course layout. So those are the different options for asynchronous. Now, if I'm taking those same discussions that I've done in my face-to-face course and putting them hybrid with rotating student groups, that's going to look pretty much the same as what I've always done. I'm going to use my facilitation skills. I'm only going to have half my class, obviously. I'm going to want a really focused session so that I make sure that they're situated the way I want them to be when they go offline without me the second day of that week. What is going to really mean that I'm going to have to do a little work is preparing the other group that's not meeting with me on that day. So I might have to have an extra assignment. I might have to have different kinds of readings that they can kind of enhance their already understanding of the work and come better prepared to discuss when we meet face to face. The goal would be to have pretty much the same session both Tuesday and Thursday, flip it, and all students experience the same type of instruction. If I'm doing simultaneous broadcast, that looks a lot different, and I'm going to have a handle on the web conferencing or the web tools that I'm going to need to broadcast. So for simultaneous broadcast, I'm planning to have a face-to-face or a discussion with all students at the same time. Half will be face-to-face with me, but half will be coming in remotely. One technique that can really work nicely for that is to have a buddy, and there's an article on our Agile Academy As You Learn site about that, where each student in the face-to-face arena would have a buddy that's coming in remotely. That way they can make sure their questions are asked. That way they can make sure they're actually engaged in the conversation with the rest of the students that are face-to-face. It's easy to lose the remote students in a discussion when they're not in the face-to-face environment and nobody's really keeping track or accountable to them. So be thinking about ways you're going to make sure they're engaged if they're in the remote arena. So on a separate day, I might augment my course with case studies, and that is going to have to look a little bit different. This is still under instructional strategies. I do discussion most of the time, but I also do a lot of an examination of specific case studies. So again, I'm going to have to make sure that when I prepare, I post a lot on the As You Learn site, that students have a real good grounding in the case itself, and that they have the questions that I want them to be able to examine as we go through the case study. So those things are going to help me prepare students. For the online piece, and I might even want a video about the case that I upload onto my As You Learn site, just to make sure that we're all situated together around this case study and why this case study is important. If I'm going online synchronous, again, we'll all be meeting together at the same time. I would use Zoom, and then we might do breakout sessions. I once again would make sure that everybody knew the focus questions, and I might have them write some key takeaways about the case itself in a discussion forum that we go over when we come back in the large main group. So that way I can make sure that what they're talking about in the small sessions is brought back into the debriefing in the large course. If I'm asynchronous, it's going to be a lot more tricky to do a case study, and I might have to have real structure in how they read the case, watch the video about the case, and then interact with each other based on the questions that I want them to examine. So that becomes a little bit more tricky and takes a little bit more work. If I'm doing case studies in a hybrid or simultaneous broadcast, again, that looks a little bit different. If I'm doing rotating student groups, I'd make sure that that 45-minute session is power-packed, that we have a really robust discussion, we examine the case, look at it from all angles, and they leave with the key understandings that I want them to. Again, we would flip. So half my class on Tuesday, half my class on Thursday. In the meantime, they're engaged in some other type of activity that will enhance that case study. If I'm doing simultaneous broadcasts, again, I would have a buddy. All my remote learners would have a buddy that's in my face-to-face class. I would group 2 remote with 2 face-to-face students as they unpack and examine the case study. This is a nice balance. And then we come back together and debrief at the same time. So that might be how I do simultaneous broadcast. Whatever you're doing, I think you can hear me talk about as you are adapting to these online and hybrid course delivery options, you're going to have a handle on some new tools if you don't already. So we don't want to overwhelm you, but do challenge yourself in this 2-week period of time to think about what are the new tools I'm going to need to be successful teaching in this agile arena. You're definitely going to want a handle on the As You Learn tools. The most important thing for students is that you use the As You Learn course management system, because that will help them understand and navigate your course. You're going to want to be using the assignment, the discussion forum, the quiz, and the grading tools for sure. In Google, you might really be thinking about how helpful Google Docs can be as students work together and they can write comments and they can post things. So Google Docs is part of the Google Suite that's very important as you move to online and hybrid types of delivery. Google Slides can be a very good way for you to present content, but for also students to make presentations in Google Slides, and it's very simple. The calendar is awesome because you can quickly get into office hours, send students individual appointments, that type of thing. So the Google Suite offers a lot of potential for online and hybrid delivery. Other tools you might need to start thinking about are Screencast-O-Matic, which we've been using in this Agile Teaching Academy. That's what I'm using right now. Zoom, I think most of us are pretty aware of Zoom and its potential. VoiceThread is a lovely tool that is a very powerful lecture capture, but students can actually add comments on different points in the lecture. So this can be a great way to lecture interactively and have students more engaged. Again, students can use VoiceThread for their own presentations. And Flipgrid you'll see in this course. It's a super simple tool, but can really provide a nice alternative for asynchronous discussions, because the discussion forum can get to be a little bit old if students are engaging in only discussion forum in 2 to 3 different online classes. So be thinking about the different tools. Okay, so just a quick step back just a minute. For this first assignment, all you're doing is the left-hand column where you're talking about your current teaching and the components that you think are the most important for your for student success in your course, and you're going to describe them and post them. This lengthier video was just to give you a little bit of a long-term look at how you're going to be completing the Agile Teaching Strategies chart over the course of these 2 weeks. Good luck.